We have three parables about the kingdom of heaven this morning. The first about the planting of the wheat and enemies' attempt to kind of sabotage the crop. The second about a tiny mustard seed that grows into a massive bush. And then the third about the yeast that makes the bread rise. Each in succession, one right after the other, and each about the kingdom of heaven. There are many things that we could draw from these parables, either individually or as a group, the group that they're in, but that would be too much to focus on in a 7-8 minute homily. So I'm just going to dive into one of the themes that I found that kind of goes through all of them, and that's the growth that God causes over time. So the first parable, it's the most detailed account that he gives here. The initial planting of the good seed, which Jesus says are the children of the kingdom. But then when the evil one comes and plants the weeds, in the parable itself, he explains that these are the children of the evil one, those who are opposed to the reign of God and opposed to this kingdom. He lets them grow together, which may seem strange at first, but it's for the sake of the good seed, so that they won't be uprooted and die themselves in the disturbed soil. I was also reading a commentary not long ago on this, and someone pointed out that not only is it a protection for the good seed that the Lord has planted, but it's also a mercy for the weeds that are in the world, those who are not part of the kingdom. In this, the Lord is giving them a chance to turn back, an opportunity to turn their lives around before they're gathered, either as wheat into the barn or as weeds into the fire. And so here we can see the care that the Lord has for everybody, in that he's not vindictive in the sense that once we mess up, we're done. There's no opportunity to turn back. Instead, he recognizes that the world and the people in it need his healing, need his grace. And so he's given the gift of time for us to turn back, to come around to him. And then in the second parable, we have, again, the mustard seed that grows into the large tree. I didn't do a deep dive into this analogy, but a quick Google search told me that a mustard seed is very tiny, and I think it said like 1/32 of an inch in diameter or around, something like that, but very, very tiny. And then it can grow up to 30 feet tall. So if the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed, it seems so tiny and so insignificant at first glance. And it's something that once planted is easily forgotten. And then life on the surface above the soil just keeps on going as if nothing happened. But meanwhile, below the surface, that seed is germinating, and it's moving the soil around it as it grows, conforming the soil to the shape of its roots that come from that seed, all the while being imperceptible to anything above. And then finally, when it sprouts, it becomes more noticeable. It grows a stem, then trunk and branches that reach to the heights. But by then, it's grown far above the ground and is visible to all. And it can't help but be seen for what it actually is. This is like the kingdom of God, because God always begins small. He didn't just come to earth and then just drop the kingdom on whatever was existing below. He began on the earth with the 12 apostles, and he grew the kingdom from there, conforming those who were living in the darkness of sin and death to live in the light of truth, in the light and the truth that is himself. Today, almost anywhere you go in the world, you can find a Catholic church, and you can see the influence that Christ has had on this world which he made and which he came to. So in addition to the gift of time that we see in the first parable, we can also see the silent growth that can occur wherever the seed of truth is planted. And then the last parable simply says the kingdom of God is like yeast that a woman mixes with flour to make it rise. Generally, this parable has the same meaning as the first two, but there's one detail I want to focus on. It's that the flour would never have risen if the woman didn't add the yeast. It's a very simple detail, but it's so important. It's because the one who's in control of the process adds what's needed for its growth that the whole batch can rise to the point that it's meant to reach. Without this person, nothing would happen. It would just remain a simple piece of flat bread, or it wouldn't even be bread if they didn't mix it. Here the woman is like God, who causes the growth of the kingdom in this world. The one who provides what's needed so that the whole batch of humanity can rise and become children of this kingdom. So from these parables then, the three things, God gives the gift of time for growth, and the initial growth occurs beneath the surface. It's often imperceptible to anyone, including ourselves. And then finally, it's God who provides for this growth. Those are the three things that kind of make up this one theme that I mentioned at the beginning, that God causes growth over time. What applies to the kingdom as a whole applies to the individuals within that kingdom as well. The gift of time that God has given to the world is also given to us. I was once told that mercy is essentially equivalent to time because it's a chance, again, to turn back to the Lord, to grow to love and trust him. It's a chance to allow his healing grace to come and change us from weeds into wheat. And it's a chance for us to allow his kingdom to extend over our hearts and for him to rule our lives and guide us in the ways of peace. Also, the growth that occurs in reaching this point begins very small and it's almost imperceptible to us, either through an action or a word that someone says or does that points to Christ in some way, or just an inspiring realization from God. God somehow plants that seed of truth in our heart, in the heart of his people, and then he allows it to grow and take shape below the surface. And we can often forget that it even happened. Because we may not see this growth, we may not even realize right at first that we've begun to see things differently, or that we're leaning more toward some virtuous course of action that we just didn't even notice before. But when we recognize this growth, we then have to make the choice to allow it to continue to grow and to live in that truth that we've been shown. If we keep choosing this, eventually that seed of truth will become a strong and sturdy tree in our lives, symbolizing the reign of God's kingdom in our own heart, but also being a visible sign to everyone else to draw them into that kingdom. You can think of like a tall tree being a landmark. That's where people know, how people know where they are. Well, that can become a landmark for others in the spiritual life as well, when they see our actions and our words. Most importantly, however, all of this growth can only be attributed to the one who causes it. And again, that is God himself. It's he who first plants the seed of the kingdom in our heart through any of the means that are at his disposal. He may use another person, he may use some aspect of creation, or he may just do it himself directly, kind of like he did with St. Paul. This also means for us that we may be the means he decides to use. In fact, it's part of our mission as Christians to participate in the proclamation of this kingdom through our words and actions. And so if we're living in the truth, then we can share that truth with others and be those willing instruments for the Lord to use as he sees fit. Ultimately, it's the Lord who plants the seed and causes its growth. So if we don't see much happening in ourselves or in others, we ought to patiently trust that the Lord is working deep in the soil of the heart and continue to pray for his grace to be poured out abundantly on that seed of truth, to water it and to cause its growth within each of us. So let's take comfort in the fact that the God causes growth over time. and have confidence that as he built up the kingdom on earth with a very small contingent and sometimes works in ways unknown to us, that he is working to build up the kingdom in our hearts and in the hearts of those we love as well.